It is possible the Bears took less from Pittsburgh, but sent Fields there because it was his preferred destination, which I respect, but it's not how you win championships. And I understand that, and this is from somebody who has been been able to separate the business from the personal and believes it's a hard wall as far as the responsibilities you have to your organization.
Might be a little reductive to
bosses.
say that that's not how you go about winning championships.
And I'm saying, so this was my response. My response was, if all else is close to equal in trade value, it may help with trust on the player's side.
Yep.
And I do get that. I understand that if you are getting I don't want to live in a world where you have a bad reputation for being a man of your word and being a good person and being someone on the players and agent side. Players have never had more individual agency. Players have never been more powerful.
Especially the one you're getting ready to draft.
Agents have never been more powerful. If, in fact, this was the market, I want to live in a world where being a good guy, where a good deed doesn't go punished.
Yes.
That's still the remaining idealist in me, that I would love to think that Ryan Poles did it because he wants to be a good man and a man of his word.
I think that where you started your question to your friend is kind of where I'm at with it. We're going to do what we need to do, but if it's equal or close to equal, why not send him to the place that he wants to go? Because he's done right by us, and we've gone on the record. Futek got mad at me on Twitter yesterday because I said this is how he apparently rolls. This is how Ryan Poles gets down. And he kind of came back with a reduction. This is not how you win championships. You don't know that. The landscape has changed, and the way that you deal with people right now is changing. And I don't know if we can use the concept of best business practices over the last 30 years and apply them.
Oh,
yeah. Like every Fortune 500 company has changed the way that they're doing business. Some have found great success with it. Some are struggling with the things that they want. But I agree with you. I don't want it to be a detriment to Ryan Poles' career that he might be a good person. Like the idea that only some scallywag can lead someone to a championship, and you must lie, cheat, and steal like you're Eddie Guerrero if you're going to be the guy that's going to lead someone to a championship. To me, I think it's bad business, and I think that if you're telling the truth, you don't have to keep track of all your lies.
I also think there's something to be said for deposits in the favor bank.
Yes,
with agents. One of the unspoken truths everywhere in sports is the internal sway that agents don't necessarily have only because of who they represent. It's because of their value as an informational conduit. And because so much info is shared through the agent system, it's sort of like what people during this is a weird analogy, but during the financial crisis back in 06 and 07, 08, when we began to understand the commercial paper market, and people are like, well, wait a second, what? These are, what do you mean daily money and what is breaking the buck and what does this mean? And all of this, like, whoa, there was like this shadow system that meant so much to what happened every day. The agent class, but believe me, you as a Bears fan, look at your coaches, look at your GM and your coach. Like, if you in any way can engender a little, just around the margins, a little bit of trust in that class and have and get some favored nation status in there, that arguably might get you closer to winning a championship.
And like, it's for me, again, to go back to the concept of like confirmation bias with Poles and his honesty. Poles came out there and told you how you felt about the Jalen Johnson thing, right? We sat here and went, Well, that's probably a negotiating tactic.
When he said, I think we're going to get something done.
Right? Like, it's probably a negotiating tactic. He probably just wants to set the stage for the Bears tried and Jalen Johnson was being unreasonable. Then immediately after they put the tag on Jalen Johnson, a deal gets done. So to me, like it seems pretty clear. And while you're talking about that honesty going a long way in the agent world, it might go a long way in the locker room. When guys are like, hey, you can go talk to Ryan Poles. You might not like what he says, but he's always going to tell you the truth.
And I know for a fact that the converse of that has hurt teams.
Of course it has.
That when an executive gets a reputation as being a little eely or being untrustworthy in any way, that filters down. That is weight room talk.
Isn't that what's going on in Philadelphia right now with the 76ers? Like, people remember and they will tell those stories about how you weren't honest. And it seems to be very popular to kind of cloak yourself in the all that matters is the business of the business of the business.
Or circumstances changed. I wasn't lying. I meant what I said then, and then the landscape changed.
I don't mean the people who are lying. I mean the people that will defend folks' ability to lie in these business situations. They would never want it for themselves. They complain about it when it happens to them. They're totally okay with it happening in professional sports or college sports or whatever. If Poles is what he's shown himself to be, it should be celebrated. And the business of the Bears still went on. They still were able to bring people in and make the moves that they wanted to make. You better get ready, because as these players get more agency, and there are folks trying desperately to keep them from having it, Nick Saban, you're going to be dealing with a different type of athlete that is more versed in what it is that you're doing. And specifically, this quarterback who you're thinking about drafting number 1 overall, he's got a pretty good sense of how this works. And he's going to manipulate it, and I don't mean that as a pejorative, to his advantage. You better know how to talk to people. You better understand that it's not the way that it was before.
And there's still so much Neanderthal NFL crust.
Yes.
That need the barnacles that need to be peeled off the hull of this big ship. And they're still there. And my worry, too, is the ownership level. That's really, we always blame it on like the scouts, the guys, the money ball.
Good baseball
guys.
face.
We always blame it, but it's ownership. Where is the oldest, whitest, richest, most backwards looking level of all of it? Ownership.
Right. Which is another reason why I think that if you look at, I don't want to give too much credit, but if you look at the growth of George McCaskey's point of view over the last 5 years,
I'm hopeful.
You should be. Now, I think that he might, I don't want to say he's alone, because I think that the Rooneys are there as well, as far as thinking bigger, even if you don't necessarily get it right.
The Rooneys got there before George did, though.
Way before George did. But you know how George got there?
Because of the Rooney's example in large part, and because of the respect that one family has for the other.
And from talking to players. Like, actually, this is him and Sam Acho. This is him, like Acho, like walking George through stuff and saying, well, this is how I feel about it. I can't say that maybe it's 100% how players feel, but even being open to the idea of maybe my worldview isn't what I thought it was. It's very different than other people. Like Jerry Jones isn't doing that. Jerry Jones will have these kind of surface relationships with players and he'll make it seem like he gets it, and then he moves in ways that proves that he doesn't either get it nor does he care to get it. I think that you look at the example that George is putting forward and say, that's good to see that type of forward movement from someone in the owner class. That's not to say that everything he does is right. Clearly, the Bears have all sorts of other issues, but I think that I think our guy Jack Silverstein played a role in this too. Them not knowing that they were, let's bring back these uniforms. Do you know that the players that are wearing the uniforms right now, the first black players to wear those uniforms? Do you know that?
And they resent the fact that they're showing them off?
Do you know that your grandfather played an instrumental role in making it so that they were the first black players to wear that? I think that George kind of was like, what? Like, I have this view of the world through the lens of Hallis, and there may have been many different views that I could have looked at. I look at it as a win. Like that to me is significant and important, and it should be, again, celebrated that people are marching towards trying to have a better understanding of other people that they deal with every day.
Empathy.
Yes.
Empathy's good business.
I think so.
Empathy. Well, objectively, empathy is good business.
Yeah, but Dan, we can say that, and there are, I think, numbers that back it up. But you're going to see, whether it's Futek or other people, of no, that's not the way to do good business in the NFL. That you have to be cutthroat to do good business.
We'll see.
And I think that you can find balance. That it doesn't have to be one far end of the spectrum and the other.
Here's a dissenting opinion from the 208 tour. That is, I don't think this helped trust. The focus was the players wanted Fields. But the between the lines comments were the players also knew Fields wasn't being done right by the franchise. I look at it both ways. I think players are getting really good at being able to say things that in the moment are absolutely heartfelt and technically true, and players can adapt and adjust their feelings based on the realities that occur. Players know that players move, just like DJ Moore said, business is business. I also think when you come out of a season with your guy, that's your guy in your locker room. And you know what? That tells me that this is a well-built roster that is going to embrace and support Caleb Williams.
I also think that let's give players credit that in DJ Moore's case, because he was the most outspoken.
And he's played for more bad quarterbacks than you care to count.
DJ Moore used his opportunity to try and make change. I'm going to say what I need to say publicly. I'm going to say what I need to say privately. I gave them my opinion as a leader inside of this locker room about the quarterback situation. They decided to do something else. Cool. But at least my opinion wasn't suppressed. That I actually got an audience with Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles. And I told them how I felt and that I might have been speaking for a majority of people inside of the locker room.
Or some constituency.
Right. They took that and then they made their decision. Even if it's a decision that I disagree with, at least you allowed me the forum to try and change your mind. That's valuable.